So my name's Ethan Burniston. I started my first company at 13 years old, and it was a digital marketing agency. Kind of in this day and age, makes the most sense. Digital is everything. I started actually properly at 8 though, which is quite a crazy story. So I'll go off on that, but if I'm allowed to, yeah.
Well, you're here to say, if someone says they've started a business at 8, what was that business?
Obviously it wasn't a proper business, but I picked up all of the balls in the back garden, and I was like, Mum, look, all the dog walkers, they want the balls. Because I was selling balls to dog walkers. I made a whole £1 out of it. I sold one for 1p. And I was amazed. I thought it was amazing. My parents weren't so happy because I'd wasted about £50 worth of balls. But, it was a funny story.
So the dog walker got that was a bargain, 1p ball. Yeah. So you made your first pound.
Yeah, exactly. And I bought crunchy later, so yeah. But no, it was, it was crazy. That was like when the story began, I guess you could say. And then over the years, I've always had a slight interest in entrepreneurship. At 11, I was watching this guy on YouTube called Manny Koshbin, and he has loads of Bugattis. Like, I think he has at least 4 Bugattis, a massive supercar collection. And obviously, every little young boy is interested in that, So I was seeing these Bugattis, and I eventually paused the book, asked for it for Christmas. And I was reading this entrepreneurship book at 11, and my parents were super confused. They were like, what's an 11-year-old doing reading like a book designed for a 40-year-old? But yeah, so that's kind of where it all began.
So what was, maybe from that book, what was the first thing that jumped out at you? Said, this is what I want to do, this is how I'm going to do it?
Yeah, so he was doing sales at the time, and that kind of got me into it. And I was like, how do you do sales? Like, how does a young person do sales? Because he was selling peanuts. And obviously you don't sell peanuts anymore. You don't get like the cups on the streets and sell them. But he was an Iranian entrepreneur sort of thing, you could call him. So Iranian, he'd moved to the US when he was 5. And because of that, there's been a lot of pressures, a lot of racism, and the common stuff that you see within within being an immigrant in the 60s. He said that, in the book, it says he found life really hard. He didn't fit in at school, and as a result, he was selling peanuts. And then I was kind of like, if he's selling peanuts in the US, what can I sell? So I started doing high ticket sales, which is basically you DM people on Instagram, you try and sell them on products, this, that, and the other. And it was my first initial starting point. But yeah, that was the first business. I started at 13. So yeah.
And did it take? Was it a success?
No. I may have made about £100, I think it was at the time.
Okay.
But obviously to a 13-year-old, that was a lot of money,
Absolutely. And lessons learned.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And here we are, a whole 4 years later.
Yeah.
What has that evolved into?
So now I'm running my digital marketing agency. I've got 8 employees, and yeah, we work with clients all over the globe, mainly in the USA. Because with school and stuff, it's easier to work in the US because their working hours are when I'm at home. So yeah. But yeah.
So 8, and how old are your employees, if you don't mind me asking?
The average age would probably be about 32. We've got one who's all the way up in his 50s, and the youngest is one of my friends. He's a graphic designer, but other than that, they're all in their mid-30s, late 20s. So yeah.
So how has that been for you, being the boss of a team that's...
I've got to say, it's hard. That's one of the things I've been trying to learn about today, management and stuff like that, because it's a skill that I don't really have. I've never worked in corporate, obviously. I've never had an actual job, and I've never been managed by someone, which always means that it's hard when you're trying to manage another person. How do you articulate that? How do you actually speak to that person? And how do you not come across as aggressive, as angry, or how do you get your point over, Because I remember back in the beginning, and obviously it's not something to be proud of, but I'm going to say it. When I was 15, I had my first creative director, you'd call it. So this was when I had an editing agency, and they were in charge of ensuring that all of the content looked good, all of the edits were on point, and they did a really bad job once. So basically, a client posted an awful video. I didn't like the video, and I was like, wow, this is really bad. I got on the phone and yelled at him. I got really angry, and at the time I thought that was what you were meant to do. I thought that was normal. I then spoke to my parents about it because they work in corporate, and they were like, why would you do that? You don't ever do that. You've got to have some boundary against yourself, and you've got to hold your, I don't know what you'd call it, but you've got to hold yourself and be professional. So that was my biggest lesson with that. But yeah.
So fascinating stuff, but clearly you're still looking to learn, looking to gain experience. Yeah. So what brings you here? Because I think you're down in Winchester, kind of that way.
Yeah.
Is that where you're based? Here you are up in the wild north, up to Leeds. What are you expecting from today? What have you already experienced here?
I was speaking today, so I was a speaker, which was quite an experience. That was my first ever panel. And it's kind of a bit scary, you know, they throw a question at you and you're like, oh, how do I answer that one, you know? And you've got to be thinking of it on the top of your head. You've got to know your answer before it's even come at you and you know the question, so yeah. But I'm looking to meet some new clients, I guess, network with people and just connect, but yeah, that's why I'm here today.
And so you already got clients across the world.
Yeah.
Leeds in the north is not exactly too much further than that.
Well, no, so the reason I was like, if I'm going to come up to speak, I've at least got to spend the day here, you know. It's like 150 quid for a train ticket. I'm not going to come up, speak and go home. It'd be a bit boring, but yeah.
But you've been called, you're not staying, you've been called back.
Well, no, like, sorry, like come home in the evening.
Well, still.
Yeah. My mother will.
And it was you did say that your mum's called you back.
Yeah.
And how important is that then? You've got your parent. How important is that you've still got that grounding? Your parents are
Yeah.
fully supporting you in doing what you're doing.
Well, to be fair, my parents are very strict. They would not like if I became the boss. So,
You couldn't shout at them down the phone.
well, yeah, no. So my limited company isn't actually set up by my parents because you can't set one up when you're 13, 14. It's set up by my granddad because my parents didn't like the idea. They were like, no, you're not doing this. I mean, they think it's amazing now, of course, but they thought it would push away from my studies and stuff. So yeah.
Well, how have you managed to balance that? I don't know.
I mean, it's pretty hard. I like wake up at 6, go to bed at maybe like 10, 11. So running low on sleep and a lot of hard work and effort. But yeah.
Well, 17, you've still got the energy there. And I suppose you could see that. How are you managing that? I know that's your routine.
Yeah.
You've got a business there of employees to support you as well.
Yeah. Well, I would say the main thing is just like communication, right? So I've got to make sure that I'm available to speak to my team and ensure they know what's going on, and ensure that everyone's on the same trajectory. So that's been my biggest thing lately because I don't have the time to go home and do all the client work and do all the client relations and get the new clients and all of the process anymore. So I've divvied it up and obviously I've got different sectors. I still handle all the sales, all of like business development, you could call it, but like I have what you call a media buyer and advertisement. I have graphic designers, video editors, and a whole team around me to support me. So yeah.
Well, good luck in everything you do, and hopefully we'll see you again at Climb 27.
Yeah, definitely.